Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Economic Times Digital Roundtable on the topic Enabling Digital Workspaces. The session is powered by Techdata, a TD Synnex company, and Dell Technologies. I'm Alka Kaur from ET Edge, welcoming you all to this session. The corporate office designs have seen a major transformation over the years. Along with this, the work patterns, styles, and approaches have also changed. In order to exist, organizations should adapt to new trends and technologies. Enabling digital workspaces call for various changes, but the most challenging one is IT transformation. IT transformation initiatives often lead to an exploration of desktop and application virtualization. However, organizations looking to adopt virtual desktop infrastructure have typically faced several hurdles, some of which are long planning and procurement cycles, significant upfront infrastructure investments, difficulty delivering a consistent user experience across locations and devices. These hurdles have turned many organizations away from adopting virtual desktop infrastructure, despite the many security and productivity advantages. In order to solve these challenges, industry leaders, brands offer a cutting edge end user experience while simplifying IT operations without compromising on performance, productivity, or security. We have a power packed panel to take you through this important topic. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming the speakers for today's roundtable. We have with us today Sandeep Tiku, Chief Operating Officer, Entain, Suresh Nambiar, Chief General Manager, Strategic Information Systems, Indian Oil Corporation Limited, Santosh V. Abbimane, Chief Financial and Transformation Officer, DTDC, Mauro Fernandes, Global VP, Solutions Design and Delivery, AB InBev GCC, Mithu Pandey, Deputy Director, SRM University, Dharmesh Rajput, Manager Solution Sales, Techdata, a TD Synnex company. And the session will be moderated by Rajiv Gupta, Managing Director and Senior Partner, BCG. Without further ado, I now invite Rajiv to take it from here. Over to you, Rajiv.
Okay, thank you. And thanks, everyone. Welcome to my esteemed panelists. Really appreciate your time for joining us on this session. That was a rather interesting introduction by Alka. I think I heard words like transformation and digital workspaces and virtual desktop and so on and so forth. I think while there have been trends and then there have been tsunamis, and what we have witnessed in the last 2 years is really not a trend. The very fact that we are doing a panel discussion on this with each of us on a virtual link, and we'll spend the next 45 minutes or so talking to each other in itself is a big difference. For me personally, it's my 25th year in consulting. I don't think I've done as many virtual sessions in the last 2 years. I mean, I've done more virtual sessions in the last 2 years than I would have done in the previous 23 years put together. So thanks once again and for joining us. What we are aiming to achieve today is a sneak peek into the last 2 years as to what it has taught us, but more importantly, looking forward, a bit of crystal ball gazing into the future and seeing what may reality hold for us, knowing very well that whatever we say today will probably be proven wrong in 6 months from now. But with that caveat, I would like to start off with some couple of questions. And Sandeep, if I don't mind starting off with you, just if you were to reflect back 2 years or 2 years plus a few months from now, what do you think would be some of those aha changes that got implemented in your organization that helped drive what Alka said, ease of use, productivity, and security? What would those be?
Perfect. Thanks, Rajiv. Nice to be here. I mean, you rightly described it. Last 2 years have been exceptional, right? We haven't witnessed something like this in the last, I don't know, decades at all. But technically, we, being a software product company, we have been by design really to work virtually. Right? Many of the people, even towards the end of the day or over the weekends, have been kind of working. So we had a setup. But what was important, and then what was the realization, is that we had suddenly adapted to a never tested methodology. We have been doing always fire drills and DR drills at office, but we never thought we have to work full time out of office, right? This was one thing. So the changes that actually we had to do were fundamental in nature. For example, an office setup at home for the employees, a power backup, internet backup, suddenly people from desktop to mobile. And the most important, this 24/7 monitoring team who used to live in a very big, sophisticated command center, large display screens to monitor the transactions, had to suddenly adapt to a laptop and distributed monitoring, right? They were not in one place, stuff like that. So how did we think that we would be successful and replace all the processes that we had set up over the years with a lot of research and debate and stuff like that, had to be switched off overnight, and in fact had to had to empower the employees and say, you pick and choose what works for you, right? And I think the most important thing that worked well for us is that we empowered our employees. We kind of supported them using technology tools, whatever were available and applicable at that time. It kept on incrementally further fine-tuning it. And most importantly, the changes, if I have to sum it in a simple right way: one, empowering our employees; second, more technical aspects, virtualization; and third, taking care of the mental health of the employees were the changes that helped us to be successful. And the end result is very simple. We have been successful than even ever being at office all these years.
Thank you, Sandeep. And I really liked your example of going from fire drills to empowerment of employees. And you brought in the mental health aspect, which we'll come back to in a short while. Santosh, from a DTDC standpoint, what are some of the changes that you were able to experience or implement that helped you and your organization?
So, so unlike a lot of the other firms, we have two layers of sort of workforce, right? We have our logistics workforce, which is largely on the field and needs to be on the field with respect to provide the services that almost all of us have become used to in the last 2 to 3 years, right? So whenever we get a parcel at home or a delivery at home, it's some organization like us that delivers, and there's some employee or partner of our organization like ours that gets that service done. And the other part is more on the office-based stuff, which requires a separate set of issues to be addressed. So like Sandeep mentioned earlier, it's a sea change, right? And it's a sea change in 2-3 areas. I think the first and the most important aspect we have all learned is agility. Right? If you remember the first 2 years, rules used to be changing every 3 months, right? What is an essential item, right? We never thought of what is an essential item and how do you define it? How do you get it from point A to point B, or even understand where it is available? And how do you deal with so for example, in logistics we always had this combination of reach, which is pin code, and service, and then suddenly you have elements like essential items, timings, curfews to deal with. So how do you, and with a large section of population depending upon what you do. So I think the first and foremost thing that we have learned is agility. You need to be agile in how you work, and you need to be agile in how you design, and you need to be agile in how you automate. There is no such thing as long term, right? In the long term, we are all dead. We have to do it now, and medium term, that is the best we can hope for. So I mean, we all love to do 5-year plans, but that's what they are, right? So this is the first part. The second part, again, is to deal with decentralized intelligence. A lot of the on-the-ground situations that we faced had to be retrieved locally and then collated and action taken. And some of those mechanisms we have sort of institutionalized today, right? How do you take feedback from a branch manager or an area manager on what is happening in your area and how to use it optimally, right? Today also you have various, and India is a country with sort of pockets of volatility here and there. So this has helped us sort of institutionalize and deal with those problems even on a BAU basis. And last but not the least, remote working has been something that the knowledge industry or the IT industry sort of used to specialize in. I think now this is broad-based, right? How do you manage a workforce and how do you drive productivity remotely. This is, I think, the largest learning that we have had, and we are seeing the benefits, right? So while there is a section of workforce that may need to come to office, even in there, we are looking at flexibility, right? Can we have flexible shifts? Can we have subs, coming in? Office staff, obviously, most people don't want to do a 5-day, 6-day week, right? So these are things that we have dealt with, and some for the good, and some that will keep on changing, right? So that's what we have seen in the last 2-3 years. A huge cataclysmic, I would say, set of changes. Things will not be what they were ever.
No, thank you, Santosh. And really liked your 3 points out there around agility, decentralized intelligence, and how this is broad-based remote working beyond IT. Yes, the last 2 years have indeed taught us that in the long run, we are all dead. So might as well optimize for more in the short term. I liked your last sentence, some for good and some for, and you kind of paused out there, and I know you didn't use the word bad, but there are pros and cons or good sides or bad sides to all. And that brings me to my next question, Mithu, if you don't mind. If we look at the current situation, so, yeah, we had a bit of a wave in Jan. We have another kind of wave probably happening now, but there have been pockets when life has threatened to quote unquote go back to normal. As we recover from the ravages of the pandemic and try to deal with it, and I'm not here to forecast what the pandemic might become or not, what do you see as the reality today, both in terms of the benefits, but also, without being too politically correct, some of the pains associated with this reality?
Okay, thank you. So if I correlate with an university, see, it's all together, working in university and working in corporate is altogether different, right? So I can tell you the prospect from the university side, like what it will be. I think your question is what it will be if the second wave will come, right? Or some next wave will come, right? So I'll tell you our experience in past, what happened. Like for us, it was not a tedious task. Just to quickly migrate from the normal to the digital platform. Okay. And because in our university, we were digitally equipped for the complete transformation even before the pandemic. So for us, we all have shifted from like offline to Cisco WebEx immediately and aligned all the lectures on it. So that's what we have done in like 2 years ago. And also we can thank to the government, who has given us the good internet affordable services, so that we were able to deliver the good lectures. We can say it has not impacted in terms of their academics, and our lectures, what we have shifted in WebEx, then all assignments, everything, exams, everything was we were doing through the WebEx only. So if we talk about SRM University, we are like #1 for excellence in the IT embedded learning system, and also India's first university powered by the NASSCOM Future Skill. So we added many more things, like if you see, we have Agile classroom concept for the management as well as the humanities. We have done lots of being a, we can say, multidisciplinary university. We have lots of courses. We explored lots of things in terms of remote meeting, webinar, international, many guest speakers, what we were not able to invite them. But yes, now this is how things have changed. So that's all from my side. I believe I answered your question, sir.
Thank you, Mithu, and that's very clear. You're right. The ability to access global speakers, guest speakers,
yes, sir,
at the top of a hat without having them to fly over and so on becomes much easier.
Yes.
And I'll move to maybe Mauro, if just to see if you have another point of view in terms of, does anything get lost in this entire digital interaction? And I know Mithu talked about it from an academic standpoint. Many of us are from a corporate standpoint. I'll just take an example. I was with some of my alumni friends in the US recently, and also in the UK. And we were, in our 25th reunion. And many of them live outside India. They're Indians, but who live outside India. And there's an interesting parallel that was drawn that if somebody was to witness the world from like a satellite outside the Earth, you would see that there would be points of time that everything just went quiet. The world just wasn't moving. And the answer would have been different in different parts of the world, like what happened in Italy could have predated what happened in India and so on. But then as people started moving, in many parts of the world, if you were able to segment that, you would have seen that the first thing that happened is children and students started moving and everything else was paused. In India, almost the reverse happened. Everybody else started moving except for children and students. So that was an interesting observation. I don't know, Mauro, if you had any views on what's worked well and what's not worked well in this tsunami that has happened.
Sure. I think it's valid to mention, Rajiv, that while we were all locked down at home, the nature comes up again, right? You see a lot of green again. You see seas coming out of pollution and so on. So we need to realize the impact that human beings also do on nature. And that may be a big learning from the time we got locked down. But one thing I wouldn't say we lost, but I think we eliminated the doubt we could do it. Yeah. In the past 3 years back, we didn't believe that junior type of roles could be managed from home. Yeah, everybody was so concerned about managing productivity. I need to be close to my resources. I need to see them work. And we didn't have option. Everybody went home and we had to make that happen. So all the companies, everybody that is here made that happen. So we are all successful case stories to guarantee that, yes, we can move in a different way. And we transformed our business, right? I think the biggest benefit was to prove that we can do that different. We can combine personal interest to corporate interest. We are smart enough to jiggle that, to manage that situations. And if we are supported by the right technologies, by the empowerment the company had to give us, and a good management, we can deliver what is expected. I think if I may be a little bit precise or coming to the point, I think one thing that we lost was that kind of bump at the coffee area where we were exchanging different type of ideas that sometimes would become an opportunity or something new that would do in the company. Yeah. Many times when you are at home, you are so exhausted of many digital calls, all these video calls, that you don't provoke type of different calls to think outside the box. You do what you have to do. You manage the things you need to manage. You talk to people you need to talk, but sometimes you don't go out of the box to create something new or to innovate.
No, very interesting. And I really like your point that if nothing else, we at least prove it's possible. Now we can look at a happy medium where the bump at the coffee area or the provocations can also happen. I think many of us talk about that soul missing from some of these interactions. And we just need to figure out not only technology, but also our social skills using technology to be able to bring that to bear. No, that's very interesting. And so, Dharmesh, if I may come to you with my next question, which is, if you had to crystal ball gaze into the future, and not too distant a future, but let's say another 2 years from now, there were large investments that were made. Sandeep talked about this big command center with dashboards and also that's one kind of investment. Then in the last 2.5 years, some organizations, let's say the software sector was a bit more geared. Some other organizations like Santosh said, and logistics companies were less geared, but now everybody's also made the investments in distributed work from home infrastructure. So you now have both of these relatively in place. One may be more used than the other, but those have happened. If you had to crystal ball gaze into the future, what do you see happening if you're to take a punt, say 2 years from now? And do you see anything that's more cutting edge, either from a tech or interaction standpoint coming to bear? Ramesh, you can't hear you, you're mute.
Audible now?
Yes, please.
Yeah, thanks, Rajiv, and good evening, everyone, and thanks to all the panelists for taking out time to be on this call. Yes, so I was just reading a Microsoft blog a couple of days back, and I was really kind of was impressed with the statement that they made, saying that hybrid work is going to be the next big disruption. Okay, so while we are seeing that disruption has been there in a lot of areas, okay, I think they very correctly sense that hybrid work is going to be the next big disruption. And having said that, when you said that like making big investments towards a lot of IT infrastructures in the past, and I would like to again point out to Sandeep's statement here in terms of the fire drills and DR drills. Okay, but none of us had pandemic drills. Because probably the last pandemic that we encountered was maybe a century back exactly, okay, when everything went into a lockdown, and there are a couple of phases that happened due to that, I think the great epidemic that was at that time. So if we take all these cues now, okay, there has been actually a lot of advantages, and I did probably also hear that I think let us see how to probably make the best use of what the pandemic has taught us in terms of the advantages or the benefits that it has shown us. If you look at probably and something related to non-IT, okay, let's look at the savings in the real estate that probably companies have made today. Okay, so if you look at probably the investments they have made in the work from home solutions, or are planning to probably make them more stronger and more widespread, I think this is one area that they can look at, that by investing in the work from home solutions with reference to maybe a lot of IT solutions around it. Okay, there has been statistics that many organizations have saved close to 32% on their year budgets because of the lockdown in the pandemic situation. For Techdata itself, in Bombay, we were planning to have another sales office. We are currently located in Hiranandani in Powai, and that's a very costly location from a business standpoint. And we are looking at another location somewhere in the western suburbs, which could have been equally costly. And suddenly, when the pandemic struck and we saw that everything, we probably shelved the decision, and there is no decision now to probably take another office. In fact, our Bangalore office, in when this March 2020, the pandemic struck, our Bangalore office was on a lease till May 2020. Okay, and when we saw the work from home and no signs of restarting again, we actually terminated the lease. So, and we have just taken another office just probably around in Jan this year. So that's a savings of nearly 1.5 years on the lease, that also in Bangalore, which was in a prime location at MG Road or Church Street, which is again a prime location. So look at the savings, and if you now compare these savings to probably the IT investments that you are intending to make around, maybe it could be work from home, security, cloud, analytics, where we have seen sudden splurge. Okay, look at the data proliferation around that when people are working from home. Okay, we have seen that suddenly there has been a surge of more than 100% on social websites in the last 2 years or so. I think that brings a lot of opportunities, and I think as Santosh also pointed out, food for thought. Okay, I'll also take a point from Mauro out here that, okay, I mean, do the best whatever with you have right now, because not knowing, okay, when again the next pandemic is going to strike us. I think you probably were to make that statement, probably with a pinch of salt. But yes, I mean, if we look at it, I don't know whether the next pandemic is going to be coming June or is it coming December. We are already seeing again a surge of cases overall. So I think when we put all these things together, I think the future and the investments what they are making has to be keeping in mind the kind of savings that they have done over the last 2 years, and see that how they could probably benefit out of this savings and benefit out of the advantages that COVID-19 has taught us, Rajiv.
No, that's very illuminating, and it's interesting, how on one hand you have some tangible savings on real estate, and kind of story you talked about your Hiranandani real estate moving to western suburbs and so on. We hear that in many instances, and yet it's not that it necessarily goes into the bottom line, but it gets reinvested in various other things, whether it's data and analytics, whether it's cloud or other forms of investments, either tech or non-tech. So completely get that. So coming back to you, Santosh, then what do you see if we talk about this quote unquote workforce transformation, this entire thing that we've gone through over the last 2.5 years? Dharmesh called out that hybrid is the next big disruption. In your opinion, what do you see as 2.0 in our workforce transformation phase that they're going through?
So I agree, hybrid is going to be the next big transformation, and largely because of a couple of factors. One is the great resignation that is going on. And with this sort of churn in employees, it's very tough to do everything digitally, right? So that is the first one. Second has to do with the way we work, right? Productivity measures and productivity tools will continue to undergo significant changes. And these will evolve and continue to evolve, and how we monitor them and how we make use of them to make it a sort of assistant rather than a distraction is going to be the next big challenge for all organizations, right? With the advent, so let me give an example. With the advent of Zoom meetings and Google Hangouts and Microsoft Teams, everybody is on a call, right? How many calls do we need? What do we do with them? And how do we effectively use them is going to be a challenge. And last but not the least, we will also have to meet the aspirations of workforce who never had these aspirations earlier, right? Whether it is staff on factory shop floors or whether it is aspirations on logistics shop floors, but we need to have some productivity tools. So for example, attendance systems are now mobile, right? It is no longer, you don't have to go and put a thumbprint. It makes a difference to the people who have to mandatorily use it. So it's a story in two parts. One is that how do we harness the sort of large tool sets that have been unleashed in the world and channelize it to get the most out of them. And that is going to be the single biggest challenge we have. There's a plethora of tools. What do you do with all of those, and how do you sort of curate it to get the best for the organization? And second is, how do you take the benefits of this evolution in workforce management and productivity to all sections of the workforce, so that there's harmony all across. It cannot be that the office goers have one set of I would say productivity tools and others do not have anything at all. So that is the, I think, second set of issues that need to be addressed. And I think the last but not the least is in how we also try to manage leisure. Right? What is definition of leisure? What is definition of work-life balance? Even in a hybrid era, is going to be very difficult as we try and manage burnout, right? So, for example, if you are working from home 2 and 3 days a week, are you going to do 16 hours or 12 hours of Zoom calls or Google or Microsoft? Or how do you do that, right? Because technology changes, people change slower than technology. So these are, I think, 2 or 3 factors that we need to look at as we come to 2.0.
Santosh, that's very well articulated. And I can't disagree with you around, let's say, the definition of leisure. I used to crib about, as a consultant, I used to travel a lot. And I've again started doing so, thank God for that. But I used to crib a lot about travel. And then in the last 2 years, I realized, oh my God, those 2 hours of being in a flight from Delhi to Bombay was actually peaceful time. And now it is just assumed that starting 7:30 a.m. till 10:30 p.m. you're just available. And any call can just hit your diary, and and when you're going to bed, you don't even remember, the 15-20 calls you did that day and why you did them, and so on. So time, I think, has become far more available. And I think and this has nothing to do with technology. This has to be a use of judgment of that technology, that how much do we get best use of that. Like Mithu said earlier, getting the best profs globally to come and teach. Yes, great use of that, versus just saying, okay, time is available, so now let's get onto a call. So really like your points on democratization of the productivity tools as well. So Mithu, again, from an academics standpoint, and where you are coming from, what do you see as the steady state from a world of academia, students and professors and so on? I know Sandeep initially had touched upon mental health. Santosh touched upon work-life balance. What is it that you think students and profs are really seeking, and how could the new world help them?
Yeah, very important question. Thank you so much. You asked me because what I felt, we can monitor only 30% students, those actually they are performing well. And most of them, because they are online, 100% online, morning 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And after 5 p.m., we conduct some kind of webinar, some guest lecture, some different set of, coding language practices, many more things are happening. So I have seen, like, we don't know, like at home, I don't know who is monitoring. So if you see 30%, those who are really performing well, but there's 70%, those who are more into, gamings and many more things. So I have seen mentally, they are not that fit. Even I don't know, I have a question, how they perform during, their campus interview time. So especially, so far, I think offline mode is very good. But this is what is the mental health. I can say students are not that fit because it's 100% online. And second, the major issue what we faced, like most of them are like, if even they are not attending their classes, I believe they can turn off their camera, right? They may say, my network is not working, something like this. Then also it's tough to monitor them. Third, during the exam, just now we have shifted from online to offline. So we have seen the percentage dropped. Earlier they were getting 90% and above. Suddenly we have seen 70% and 60%. That's the reality actually. Yes, that's what I think somewhere the quality what we are teaching, it's good. But again, monitoring is little tough online mode. And especially for 4 years of the engineering program, the 2 years is literally gone. Like even if they are in first year, second and third year is totally gone. I don't know what they will study in 1 year. So that's what is a like major thing what I am feeling in terms of their career part of thing. Yes, sir.
No, that's very insightful, Mithu. And it's interesting you use the words that the 2 years are gone, because so far we've been saying, though, actually they're not gone. They have been so much more useful. We've been productive and so on and so forth. But there is something, and I think this experiment has gone on long enough for us to know that yes, there are many, many benefits, but there is something that also gets lost. And, we as senior adult business guys or people belonging to the academia would be stupid to say, it's all hunky-dory. I mean, so that's very useful. Mauro, if I may ask you the next question, therefore, building up on what Mithu said, as leaders in our respective organizations and as thought leaders overall in the industry, what do you think is our role or the role of leaders to shape the future in terms of something that that is really more sustaining and more balanced?
I think number one is listen to people, right? We talked until now only about technology, but from now on that we have the option to come to the office, we need to listen to how people prefer to work. And that is going to be a combination. If you think about in the industry, if you think about, in my case, in the breweries, I have cases where I cannot have people at home. They need to be there to manage the production. But if I look at the future, I need to find smart automations to important pieces of the business, because as you said, if a new pandemic is around the corner, we don't need to sacrifice 100% of the brewery workers because we made that happen in a smart way. If you go back to the office, I really believe that offices in the past were places you work. Now they will be places where we collaborate. And we still may collaborate with people that are connected from any other place, because what the pandemic did, in a sense, was moving the work to the cloud, right? Everybody's in the cloud now, and we can connect from everywhere. The option is I need to connect to X, Y, and Z, and I want to be at the office, right? And another thing is, if the office is not ready for accommodating the new needs, we still need to be there to sit and work. So for me, offices will be different, will be spaces to collaborate for a specific topic in a specific range of time, right? And if you feel more comfortable to be there one day in, one day out to do your work, it's an option. It's not mandatory anymore.
No, very, very interesting, very strong phrase that no longer is your office address a place of work address, but a place of collaboration address. So Sandeep, if I may come to you on that point. So both Dharmesh and Santosh mentioned that hybrid is the future. We've had a period of time when everything's been virtual, like this particular discussion. Everybody's on a screen. And so we are respectful of each other's spaces and we speak. I am a moderator, I ask a question, somebody answers, and so on. And we kind of, over a period of time when the pandemic started, we all became reasonably good at that. So that's one model. The other model is we were in a room around a table on whiteboards. And culturally, some people would be a bit more energized, some people would be a bit quieter, but we had a way of working that lasted for several decades prior to this. Now we are getting into this interesting hybrid model. Imagine out of this panel of 6 of us, 4 were in the same room debating on this, and 2 of us were on a screen trying to get our voice in. Or what Mauro talked about, an opportunity to collaborate. Let's say we were going to solve some problem statement, I don't know, how to best use analytics that comes out from Microsoft to assess the productivity of individuals. And again, 4 of the 6 of us were in a room, whiteboarding and so on and so forth, and shouting over each other and taking a pen and doing it. And let's say 2 of us, pick anyone, let's say pick Sandeep, you and me are here. How does that work? And how do you see that working?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a very important aspect of it, Rajiv, and I will kind of take some time to describe it to you. First of all, it's all evolving, right? 2 years back, where we were and where we are now, it's very interesting. I mean, just take a small example, a very tiny example, but it makes huge difference. You know, neither team nor Zoom, nobody had this background blurring or background as an image, right? And if you think about during pandemic, this became the most important feature used by the employees, right? Because you didn't have a setup at home. We weren't ready. And suddenly you have this feature of background, either blurring or using a background, and everybody's comfortable, right? Small things incrementally made a huge difference, right? Now, my view, and again, this is what we did in Entain as well. First of all, I think we as leaders should be very careful about some things. When we say hybrid, everybody tries to define it. I don't think so. We need to go with this wind. We need to take a pause. We need to engage with the employees because we have seen they actually solve the problem, not leaders, not boardroom solve the problem. We need to listen to the employees and we need to bring it all together. But it would be a stepped evolution process. If I fast forward now, 3 or 4 years down the line, my view personally is it's no longer called hybrid. It's probably work from everywhere, right? I call it WEV, right? It's nothing to do with work from home, work from office, or a hybrid. It's work from everywhere. That means you basically empower your employees, change your policies, use technology to basically bring them together. And that would enable employee to work from anywhere, which will keep them motivated, one. And second, they will be happy about it. They will be feeling in control and doing the right things, right? Now, but then what do we lose? We lose one important thing of being together, because innovation does not come by these kind of aspects. Second, in the last 2 years, I realized, and you asked this interesting question, if all of us are on a call, remote, this way, the call works very well. But if 4 people are in a room and 2 are participating through Teams and something like that, doesn't really work very well, right? My view is, and this is where we are investing in technology and something like Facebook is doing and everybody else is doing, and I think this is super important. And I'm personally kind of betting on this, that 4 years down the line, we will have a culture where it's work from everywhere. It would be powered by augmented reality technologies. So imagine it this way. You are working from anywhere, doesn't really matter. You're doing your peaceful work, but suddenly you need to collaborate. You just put your augmented reality glasses kind of a thing. And then it brings all of you together in the same space. And you spend that half an hour collaborating. Augmented reality is not like Zoom, right? It's almost being together. You can do everything. You can do whiteboarding together. You can do a PowerPoint together. You can solve together. And once you're done, you just get rid of these classes and you're back to your space. I think this is where I personally feel we should be strong at it. We, as industry leaders, should invest in Entain. We're already doing it. Investing, finding out what the best way of doing it, so that work from everywhere should be the mantra. And this is what we should help and then empower our employees in the coming days.
Very well articulated, Sandeep, and thank you for that. Really liked not only the vision of work from everywhere, but then some of the technologies, and you took augmented reality as one to bring that to life. I'm sure there'll be many other technologies that will converge to do so. I was reading a very interesting book about how 6 different technologies have converged to make an Uberized flying car model possible, and a reality stated to be piloted by 2023, so not too far from now anyway, and commercialized by 2027. And it is always and the interesting thing was about the convergence of different technologies and not any one technology that makes it happen. So that brings me to my next question, and Dharmesh, if I don't mind posing that to you as one of the technologists in this room. As we look forward to this vision that's being painted by our co-panelists, and Sandeep just articulated one, what do you think should be our expectations from various organizations, various tech organizations and service providers, either software or hardware or data, that they're able to bring to us to enable this vision or even enhance it?
Yes, Rajiv.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question. And I think I actually wanted to be the last speaker to answer this question. But anyways, in fact, I will probably tweak this question a little bit, because we ourselves are service providers for all these technologies and solutions to the various customers, like the esteemed panelists who are there on the call today. Okay, and one of the things that we would like to obviously do as a part of our roadmap, and I think panelists did mention about that let's look at the midterm and not the very long term. I think it was Santosh who mentioned that. Okay, so we would like to adapt ourselves to the new customer experiences that they have probably experienced over the last 2 years of pandemic, which have been very different. Whether it is in terms of agility, whether it is in terms of mobility. We just heard Sandeep talking about work from everywhere. We talked him about, we saw him talking about innovation. So I think that is what, as a service provider, I would like to offer, and this is what probably customers can expect this from Techdata, as well as from vendors whom we are partnering with. Say for example, Dell EMC, okay, is definitely one of them who has this kind of an end-to-end solutions to meet these requirements. Okay, and couple of things when we cater, because as a service provider I have to cater to customers who are everywhere. I'll just take a cue again from what he mentioned, and they mentioned about work from everywhere. So when I say work from everywhere they would expect a service provider, whether it is in as far off as Guwahati, Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, or maybe Jammu and Kashmir, or maybe Kanyakumari, anywhere, any part of the country. If there is a customer working from everywhere, I have to be everywhere to cater to that customer, because no longer I can say that, no, I would like to meet the customer in his head office here in Bombay or Delhi, or maybe meet him somewhere in his data center. I have to probably get on a video conferencing call with him, understand his requirement. He might be sitting, somewhere in a very remote area. So I think that is one where we have to cater to these customers who are working from everywhere, and also cater to the customer experiences, which could be very specific to a particular vertical. Okay, maybe whether it is a software industry, whether it is education that we are talking about here. We heard SRM about how the pandemic has really affected the online and the offline education programs. We have seen DTDC in terms of reaching out to the most remote locations with the services, which obviously they were offering once upon a time. So I believe that a lot of things have already gone digital, and I think digital is going to be the way for the future also. So our customers also can expect a lot of these kind of services to them, whether it is in digital, remote kind of services, the agile services that we would like to offer to them. So this is what I think customers can definitely expect from Techdata. And very, very importantly, in fact, we already, when we started to partially work from office, I still remember the December 1st, 2021 was the date when we started office with a 25% capacity. And I think one of the first points that we discussed, that how to cater to our partners and customers and vendors, was to reimagine and reinvent the post-COVID-19 world, because it's not the same what it was 2 years before. And I think I would probably like to leave, this probably discussion point with this particular statement as to reimagine and reinvent. Thanks, Rajiv.
No, thank you, Dharmesh. And no, that was very aspirational, to say the least. And thank you for talking about, the sentence I really liked was, if your clients and your customers are going to quote unquote work from everywhere, then your services need to be everywhere. And therefore you need to digitally be able to provide that in any part of the country or the world. I'll just ask a few what I call rapid fire questions, and ask the same question, just ask each of you to give an answer. The first thing that comes to mind in one sentence or 2 or 3 words. And I see you smiling, Santosh. So Santosh, why don't I start with you? And it's the same question for everyone. The one tool you enjoyed using the most in the last 2 years?
I think video meetings.
Video meetings. You took the easiest answer away. Sandeep?
Microsoft Teams. Same.
Teams. Mauro?
Virtual desktop.
Virtual desktop. Okay, very interesting. Yeah, Mithu?
Connecting with the those who are not able to connect.
Connecting with those who are not able to connect.
Yeah. Those who are not reachable, at least they have time to speak, and they have given us the time for our students and to us. So that's what it's unbelievable.
Very, very unique. Thank you. And Dharmesh? You're on mute, Dharmesh.
Please allow me 3 words I said: work from home, digital, innovation.
Okay. I would argue though, digital innovation are not tools, they're concepts. But yeah.
There are a lot of digital tools that we did deploy, to cater to the services of the customers.
Sure. No, absolutely. The next question, and if I may start with you, Sandeep, the one experience where you wish you were not remote, you wish you were there in person?
Innovation ideas, generating those cooler talk couldn't be done in the remote way.
Dharmesh, from you?
Collaboration.
Okay, innovation, collaboration. Mithu? Innovation again. Mauro?
Man, this is easy. Happy hours.
Happy hours. And Santosh? You're on mute, Santosh.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I said this is the same thing. I agree. Happy hours.
Yeah, the one little gadget that we all need is for our screens to recognize, and I know Apple does it to some extent, that we are speaking, but you're on mute, and they realize whether what you want to speak needs to be heard or not, and unmutes you or not.
Absolutely.
That would be a good AI.
Yes.
But the only problem is it should not unmute you when you don't want to be heard and you're saying something to your wife or your kids. And
that's the next level of AI, Rajiv.
Yes, that is the next level of AI, but we'll get there. We'll get there. And my final rapid fire question, and if I may start with you, Mauro, which is, do you think mental health? So we talked about all the digital and the productivity and all the benefits and some of the risks and what the future holds. The question is a yes or no answer, and you could take a sentence to answer a why. Do you think mental health of employees, or Mithu in your context, students and profs, has increased, remained the quality of mental health, has it increased or improved, remained the same, or deteriorated in the last 2 years?
Deteriorated in last 2 years.
Okay, we'll go with you, Mithu, first. And okay, Mauro?
Drastically deteriorated.
Drastically deteriorated. Dharmesh?
Deteriorated.
Santosh?
It's a mixed bag. So I would not say deteriorated, but it is under pressure. And I think what is in shortage sometimes is empathy. So
yes, Mauro talked about listening to people being one of the most important. Sandeep?
It's both ways. For some, actually, it has improved, and for some, it has deteriorated. So I don't think there is one answer for it, actually.
Fair. No, thank you for your participation. I have, like Mithu said earlier, last 2 years, I've been able to participate in more of these conferences, either as a moderator or as a panelist or as a speaker, than I was able to do earlier, because earlier it almost always meant you have to fly, or even if you have to drive, it's a 3-4 hours investment. Now, actually, it's a 1 hour investment. And therefore, by definition, you can do 3x or 4x what you would have been able to do. That's simple math. And whenever I participate in these sessions, I'm always trying to see, are there 3 takeaways I can do? Today's session was actually one of the much better ones in that sense. And I wrote down what I would like to call the 10 commandments. And Alka, if that's okay, I'll just read my takeaways as a summary for the audience and hand it over to you. But I really liked the fact that the last 2 years was moving from fire drills to actually empowerment. And therefore, therefore the second one is eliminating any doubt that we can do it. It's very clear we can do it. Now, to what extent do we choose to continue to do it when things get back to a better status quo is up to us. I really liked the fact that we touched upon mental health and work-life balance, and we shared our views in the last question, but at least the fact that we are conscious and cognizant of it. I love the fact that agility is not only in work, but agility is in design and automation as well. So the 3-pronged approach to agility in terms of defining how we think about work, and using that, the 4th point is broad basing it beyond the IT industry. No longer is remote working the sole recipient of people in the software industry. Yes, India was a provider to many global companies doing that work, but now we've done it in many, many other industries as well. Using this as an ability to bringing the best to your participants. I mean, Mithu talked about bringing the best profs, but in all our contexts, is bringing the best skills, the best talent to whoever your custodians are. Democratization of productivity tools. And I liked Dharmesh's answer in the quickfire that there are digital and automation, the various tools, but how they've been democratized and how we increasingly need to do so. We talked about listening and empathy. I loved the fact that the future of work or the future of office is a place to collaborate, enabled by various converging technologies, AR being one example that was taken. And the final one that I will quote is, hybrid is the next wave of disruption. Yes, are we perfect today? No, we are not, but we are on a trajectory that we would not have ever predicted 2 years back. With this kind of trajectory, it can't not be the reality. So with that, thank you everyone for being such an engaging set of panelists. I hope the audience, who I can't see through this mechanism, but and that's something I miss about actually the eye contact with people, but I hope they enjoyed and learned something from it. Alka, over to you, sharp at 4:55.
Thanks, Rajiv.
Thank you, Rajiv, for taking us through such an enlightening session. Before we conclude the session, I would like to express my gratitude to every one of our panelists for making the time to join us here today and sharing the knowledge and expertise with us. Thank you once again for joining the session on enabling digital workspaces. The session is powered by Techdata, a TD Synnex company, and Dell Technologies. We look forward to seeing you all more for our sessions in the future. This is Alka Kaur signing off. Have a nice day and stay safe.
Thank you. Thanks, Alka. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone.
Take care.